heal the broken jaw, come back and fight people my weight.
Nobody saw this coming. Not the fans, not the critics, and honestly, probably not even JakePaul himself. One fight, one night, one perfectly timed right hand, and suddenly the loudest and most divisive figure in modern boxing may be finished for good. Because this isn't just about losing to Anthony Joshua. This isn't even about getting knocked out. This is about JakePaul waking up in a hospital bed, his jaw wired shut, his face swollen, doctors explaining that the damage was far worse than initially believed, and people close to him quietly asking a question no one ever imagined would come this early. Is it even worth returning? Tonight, we're breaking down what truly happened after the AJ fight, why this injury is unlike anything Jake has faced before, and why sources close to him believe this could be the moment he walks away from boxing forever. This is a career hanging by a thread. Let's begin here, because context matters. JakePaul didn't simply lose a fight. He stepped into an entirely different universe. For years, Jake built his boxing career carefully. Older MMA fighters, smaller boxers, controlled matchups, a gradual rise. Love him or hate him, there was one thing you had to admit. It was smart. Then came Anthony Joshua. This wasn't a YouTuber versus a former MMA champion. This wasn't a novelty crossover. This was a former unified heavyweight champion of the world. A man who has knocked out elite fighters standing across from JakePaul on a global Netflix broadcast. And Jake didn't look afraid. He didn't retreat. He walked in believing something massive, that he belonged there. That belief matters, because it's also what made what followed so brutal. When Joshua finally landed clean, it wasn't just a knockdown. It wasn't merely a knockout. It was heavyweight reality colliding with influencer ambition. And Jake didn't just lose consciousness. He lost something far more dangerous to lose in boxing. His jaw. The broadcast cut. The highlights replayed. Social media exploded. But what people didn't see is where this story truly begins. Jake didn't celebrate surviving. He didn't trash talk. He didn't even go straight to his team. He drove himself to the hospital. And that alone tells you something was seriously wrong. Doctors didn't just find a fracture. They confirmed his jaw was broken in 2 places. Not cracked, not bruised, broken. That kind of damage doesn't come from glancing blows. It comes when elite heavyweight power lands flush. Within hours, Jake was in surgery. Titanium plates, teeth removed, weeks, possibly months of recovery. And here's the part most people overlook. Jaw injuries change fighters physically, mentally, emotionally. Let's slow this down. A broken jaw isn't like a broken hand or a torn muscle. Those heal, you rehab, you tape them up. Your jaw is different. It affects how you eat, how you speak, how you sleep, how you breathe under pressure. And once it's broken severely, it's vulnerable forever. Fighters who suffer major jaw breaks don't just worry about getting hit again, they feel it. Every exchange, every flinch, every punch carries memory. And for someone like JakePaul, who built confidence on momentum, bravado, and mental edge, that matters because boxing isn't only physical. It's psychological warfare. And a damaged jaw plants doubt where confidence once lived. When Jake posted from the hospital, most people focused on the humor, the liquid diet jokes, the upbeat tone. But read between the lines. This wasn't victory Jake. This wasn't defiant Jake. This was reflective Jake. Thanking doctors, talking about recovery, not mentioning another fight. And people close to him noticed, because Jake usually moves fast. He fires back. He calls someone out. This time, silence. And silence from JakePaul is loud. This is where things turn serious. Sources close to Jake's camp have quietly said the conversations happening now aren't about who's next. They're about whether there should be a next fight at all. Not because Jake is afraid, not because he can't train again, but because the damage changed everything. Boxing was always a risk. This time, the cost showed up immediately. When doctors start talking about long-term nerve sensitivity, repeat fractures, and permanent vulnerability, fighters listen, especially fighters who already have money, fame, and other futures waiting. JakePaul has lost before. He lost to Tommy Fury and came back louder. He faced criticism and doubled down. But this isn't a loss. This is a physical warning. A reminder that heavyweight boxing doesn't care about storylines. It doesn't care about confidence. It doesn't care about branding. It only cares about physics. And physics caught Jake hard. That's why this feels different. That's why even his supporters are quiet, because you don't argue with anatomy. Imagine being Jake right now. On one side, legacy, ego, proving everyone wrong. On the other, your face wired shut. Doctors urging caution. The knowledge that one more clean shot could permanently alter your life. That's not a boxing decision. That's a life decision. And fighters who ignore those moments often regret it later. Jake knows the stories. He's watched careers end badly. The question is whether he listens. Here's the uncomfortable truth. If JakePaul retires now, he doesn't lose. He leaves boxing having headlined global events, fought champions, changed the sports landscape, and forced traditional boxing to evolve. He doesn't walk away exposed. He walks away having pushed it as far as it could go. And there's power in that, because the alternative is returning with a compromised jaw, slower reactions, and the burden of proving you're not damaged. That's dangerous territory. Every boxer pays a price. Some pay with memory, some with mobility, some with quality of life. Jake just paid a bill most fighters don't see until much later. And once that door opens, you can't unsee it. This fight didn't just test Jake's ability. It tested how much of himself he's willing to sacrifice for boxing. If Jake retires, he doesn't vanish. He becomes the man who changed the rules, then chose health over ego. He still controls narratives, still controls platforms, still controls influence. And ironically, retirement might protect his mystique more than another risky comeback ever could. There's also the other possibility. Jake heals, rehab goes perfectly. He convinces himself it was bad luck, and he returns lighter, smarter, safer. But if he does, the margin for error is gone. No more experiments. No more size jumps, because the next injury might not be recoverable. Because if JakePaul comes back, the sport won't treat him the same. The curiosity is gone. The novelty is gone. The what if is gone. What remains is expectation. Before the Joshua fight, Jake was playing with house money. Every step up was framed as courage. Every risk was praised. Even defeats were sold as growth. Now there's no cushion. If he returns, every punch he absorbs will be judged differently. Every wobble will trigger the same thought in everyone's mind. Is the jaw okay? That's the curse of this kind of injury. It follows you into the ring. Opponents will target it. Commentators will mention it. Fans will flinch every time his head snaps back, and Jake will feel all of it. Because even if the bone heals, the mind remembers. That's why heavyweight boxing is unforgiving in ways lower divisions aren't. One clean shot doesn't just end fights, it ends confidence. And confidence is what carried Jake this far. Now let's talk about the AJ fight itself, because there's something important people are missing. Anthony Joshua didn't beat JakePaul because Jake was a fraud. He beat him because weight classes exist for a reason. Joshua didn't rush. He didn't brawl. He didn't try to humiliate him early. He waited. And when the opening appeared, he threw like a heavyweight who's done this his entire life. That right hand wasn't reckless. It was precise, compact, heavy. That's why the damage was so severe. Jake wasn't overwhelmed. He was outgunned. And that distinction matters for Jake's future. Because if the loss was about skill gaps, you can train. If it was conditioning, you can improve. If it was experience, you can gain it. But if it's physics, there's no training camp that fixes that. That's why the post-fight conversations are so uncomfortable. Jake can't just go again without facing the reality that stepping in with elite heavyweights puts his long-term health at risk. And this is where Jake's situation becomes unique. Most fighters don't have an exit plan. Jake does. He doesn't need another payday. He doesn't need another headline. He doesn't need approval from boxing fans who were never going to accept him anyway. What he needs to decide is whether boxing still serves him or if he's already taken everything it had to give. Because let's be honest, JakePaul already won the experiment. He crossed over. He sold out arenas. He brought boxing into mainstream conversation with a new generation. He made promoters uncomfortable and fighters wealthy. Very few outsiders ever reached that level. Walking away now wouldn't be quitting. It would be choosing timing. And timing is what separates smart careers from tragic ones. But there's one more layer to this. Jake doesn't just fight opponents. He fights narratives, and the narrative right now is dangerous. If he returns and loses again, especially by knockout, the story shifts from bold challenger to someone who didn't know when to stop. That label sticks. On the other hand, if he retires now, the final image isn't defeat, it's survival. A man who pushed the boundary, found the edge, and stepped back before it pushed him off. That's a rare ending in boxing. So right now, JakePaul isn't deciding on a comeback. He's deciding what kind of future he wants. A controlled legacy, or one more roll of the dice in a sport that already showed him its sharpest edge. Whatever he chooses, one thing is clear. That right hand from Anthony Joshua didn't just end a fight. It forced a question JakePaul has never had to answer before. When is enough enough? And for the first time in his boxing journey, the answer truly matters.